Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another video for EVE Echoes. Today we're looking at one of my favourite ship lines in the game, that is to say the Minmatar Thrasher destroyers. So we're going to have a look at the Thrasher 2, and the Thrasher fleet issue, just to give you an idea, if like me you're using small cannons, of where you might go with those and what you would kind of do for fitting. Because there are some cool little different options you can do with the Thrashers. They're not one of those ships that has a best fitting. It does depend entirely on what you want to do, so that's what we're going to look at. Now, before we jump in on this one, if you do enjoy the video, let me know by hitting like, subscribe to the channel for all things EVE Echoes, and ding that notification bell so that you know when the next video goes live. The comment section down below, plus all those social media channels, are a great way to get in contact with me. Let me know what kind of topics you want to see me cover in future videos, that kind of thing down there. I love chatting with you all. Finally, if you do want to help support this channel, you can do so by joining me over on Patreon. Details are along the bottom of the screen now. Every dollar, every pledge really helps, so thank you all so much. Right, so let's talk about the Thrasher. Now, the more astute of you in the audience may have already spotted that normally when I start talking about a particular ship, I have that ship on screen at the start, and I don't here, I'm in a pod. Well, yes, that's because I actually lost my Thrasher earlier out in some fleet engagements. Yeah, not overly proud of it, but you know, this is EVE, it happens. So I thought this was a great opportunity to showcase how to repair a ship. All those insurance vouchers that we've been getting for things like daily login rewards and for leveling up the advanced tutorials, those are used for rebuilding any ship that you lose, as long as that ship is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, or a trainer. There are also a couple of the prototype ships like the Yanjung later on that can be done using this. But essentially, once it's destroyed, dock at a station, go into character. Now, on your character page, once this loads, on the left-hand side, you will see a combat log. If we go into losses, you can see the ships that you have lost recently. You can see I've lost a Slasher, a Tristan, a couple of other bits and pieces here. But down here at the bottom is my Thrasher. So if I hit repair on that, it'll say the first time is free, but Thrasher will be placed in storage of the current station. So 100%, that's what we're going to do. Repair successful, the ship has been docked at this station. So now if I go into my inventory, here in Alacara, I should have a ship hanger. There it is, the Thrasher. So let's set that to active and talk about this particular ship. And there she is, isn't she beautiful? That is a 3-guild belt shark, as they're known, because of how popular they are with pirates like me. Now, this is, of course, also using the Thrasher Earth skin. You can buy the skins in the store, plus you get some temporary ones as part of the daily login rewards. The Thrasher Destroyer was just one of the ones that did come up there. I liked it so much that I grabbed some with the remaining plex that I had to get the permanent version of this, because I do absolutely adore this. Do be aware, though, those skins do only apply to the explicit ship shown. So the Thrasher skin does not work on the Thrasher 2 or the Thrasher fleet issue. Anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about fitting this thing. So let's open the fitting menu and have a look at the statistics of this particular ship. So of course it is a destroyer, 3 high slots, 2 mid slots, 3 low slots. It has a roll bonus of 25% small cannon optimal range, which we'll come back to later, and for every point you have in small cannon operation, you will get 7.5 additional small cannon damage. That's a great little start. If, like me, you've been starting off with cannons and going from frigates up to destroyers, this is a great ship to go in simply because of that damage there. The small cannon operation, I have that at level 5, which means I get an additional 37.5 small cannon damage there, which is fantastic with 3 of those small cannons in the high slots. Destroyer command will then also give me a 5% increase to flight velocity, which allows me to move that little bit faster, loot things a little bit faster, and makes me harder to hit as long as I am moving. Stat-wise down below, don't need to worry too much about this. Power grid isn't huge, but it is a Minmatar ship, what do you expect? Capacitors, again, yeah, they're sort of middling. Other than that, decent cargo hold, the rest of it is pretty standard for a destroyer. But it's that roll bonus that I want to talk about. Now, a small cannon optimal range bonus of 25% means that any cannons that you're firing off this ship will have 25% increased optimal range. Now, some people will say, well, okay, should I use autocannons or should I use strike cannons? I personally prefer strike cannons on a Thrasher simply because of how that bonus operates. Think of it this way. If autocannons have an optimal range of 1 kilometer, that bonus takes it to 1.25 kilometers. It's barely any increase at all. Whereas a strike cannon, if it's got an optimal range of 10 kilometers, suddenly it's at 12.5. It is a huge upgrade to the range. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm going to show you here with Mark III small small strike cannons fitted onto the Thrasher. I do have some Mark 5s here, which I'm going to take back to showcase later on. Obviously, the Thrasher itself is a Tier 3 ship, so I want to talk about having this fit with Tier 3 loot. Now you see straight off that with 3 of those cannons fit into the high slots, 3 of the Mark 3 small strike cannons, we are already halfway through our power grid on this ship. These things do eat power grid, so destroyer engineering is a skill you are probably going to want to train. Fortunately though, that is also a skill you get through your advanced tutorials, so there's that. We'll equip a Mark 3 small afterburner because we want to be able to use that speed bonus as well in order to keep ourselves alive out in space, and then in the next low slot we're going to put a Mark 3 small shield booster. Now, if you happen to have a gyro stabilizer and you can fit it in with your power grid, that will require destroyer engineering. You can put a gyro stabilizer in that middle slot, in that low slot at the bottom there as well. That will just increase the DPS. Now, with the skills I've got there, you can see that that is a fairly respectable 58.59 DPS. Don't worry too much about the damage per second itself. This thing doesn't deal in very quick bursts. Autocannons fire quickly and repeatedly, whereas strike cannons, as you can see here, this thing has an activation time of 8.5 seconds. They only fire every 8.5 seconds, but they do have a whopping range here of about 10-11 kilometers for the optimal range, and an accuracy fall-off of then 9.8. So at 20 kilometers, basically, you're at 50% effectiveness, and you can shoot all the way up to basically 30 kilometers, which is just huge and really, really useful for going out there and doing combat anomalies. Now, of course, that's not, as I said, the be-all and end-all of the Thrasher. It's not like this thing was designed purely for combat anomalies and it can't do anything else. So that's why we are now going to move across to another Thrasher, and I'm going to show you how to fit this for PvP brawling. So this is my brawling build with the Thrasher. Now, brawling is basically when you get up close and personal. Think like a boxer, you get right up in their face, you dodge and dive and weave in front of them, and you just keep punching them with quick little jabs. That's why we're using the autocannons here, because they have a much higher DPS. Shorter range, but a much higher DPS. Now, the reason for going at the shorter range is basically this energy Nosferatu. As you can see here, this has an optimal range of 4 kilometers up to a maximum basically of 6 to 8. At 8 kilometers, this thing becomes useless. So you need to be orbiting within that range. Sort of the 6 kilometer is where I would aim to be. Obviously, strike cannons are not going to be great for that because you're going to really suffer with the tracking. The autocannons, therefore, get up close and personal. You can see here, optimal range of 1.58, and that's with the Thrasher's 25% bonus. An accuracy fall-off of about 6 kilometers means that at about 8 kilometers, this is really beginning to feel it itself. So, again, you start to orbit this one around the 5 to 6 kilometer marker. The aim there being that I'm dealing a high amount of damage up close and personal. I'm trying to kill them as quickly as I can whilst avoiding any damage coming in because I'm moving so quickly. Now, the energy Nosferatu here ultimately is designed for me to sap through their capacitor. I steal their capacitor and put it into mine. That means that the Mark III small energy booster here can be active pretty much all the time, along with that Mark III small afterburner. The afterburner means I can be whizzing round at a short orbit very, very quickly, which makes me a hard target to hit, because I'm moving very quickly, and the shield booster there, as I said, means I'll be repairing any damage that does hit me. I can leave all of those running whilst that Nosferatu drains. Now, I do have a Mark III warp disruptor in here as well. This is what makes this build great for PvP. It does actually have a surprising range of 21.25 kilometers. That's further than I thought disruptors actually were. But this allows you to lock someone down so that they can't run away, assuming they don't have additional warp stabilization like the Venture does, for example. You go up to someone, you lock them down once you're within 21.25 kilometers, they now can't warp away. You get within that 6 kilometer, you open fire with your autocannons and with your Nosferatu one, drain their capacitor so that they can't repair properly, fill your capacitor so you can repair and boost better, and we've got a Mark III gyro stabilizer here as well to kick out that extra damage. Gyro stabilizers are weapon upgrade modifiers, low slot weapon upgrades. Basically, there are versions of these for each of the other weapon types. For example, if you're using railguns, you can use a magnetic field stabilizer, that kind of thing. But the gyro stabilizer is the version for cannons. This gives a flat 5% DPS increase to any cannons on the ship that it's fitted to, and you can use the gyro stabilizer, activate it for a short period, 20 seconds activation, to give an increase further to the DPS. That makes this a very powerful ship. In fact, you can see with Mark III equipment, I'm up to a 98.87 DPS on this. That is a much higher increase over the strikes. That's basically due to that sacrifice of range. Here, you've got to be up close and personal, punching them in the face, whereas the strikes are a lot safer away from away in the distance. Anyway, so that's the Thrasher covered. Let's now look at the Thrasher 2 and then up to the fleet issue. Here is the Thrasher 2. Now, whereas the standard Thrasher is a Tech 3 destroyer, this is a Tech 4 destroyer. You will need to be Tech 4 to be able to fly this, or to build it, and do note that being Tech 4 means it cannot be insured. Where you saw me pull the other one back with vouchers, if I lose this one, it is gone, and I will need to purchase another. Now, the big advantage that I'm sure you can already see is that there are 4 turret slots in those highs. If we have a look at the stats here, 4 high slots, 2 mids, 3 lows, and also 2 power grid and 2 engineering rigs that we can fit into here as well. That gives for a massive increase in this ship's capabilities. You have the same roll bonus as the Thrasher of small cannon optimal range plus 25%, but you'll notice that on small cannon operation, for every level of that skin we now have, it also gives us a 4% increase in small cannon damage and 7.5 small cannon tracking speed. This means that there is a lot higher damage coming out of this. For having small cannon operation, sitting there at now, I've got 5 skill levels in that, means I get 20% small cannon damage, and again 37.5 small cannon tracking speed. That is a whopping increase over the Thrasher. And you can see here that using the exact same equipment, I've got in here now the Mark III small shield booster, the Mark III small afterburner, and for the turrets I'm running Mark III small strike cannons. You can see that that has increased my DPS here to 83.19 with those strikes, and we're still then operating at a range of around about 20 kilometers with these things. That is a big boost, and lots of money coming into the corp while I'm recording this. That's very nice. I like this. Now, rigs are a very different matter. These are things that you can ultimately fit in additional slots. You get a couple of these as part of your daily login rewards, or of course you can make some better ones yourself. I've got a video actually on how to do industry and manufacture. I'll put a link to that in the description, and I will remember to do it this time. I know I'm terrible for doing that. I will put the link in the description below. For that particular video, so you can see how to make your own rigs. In here, I have popped in a cannon collision, the prototype one that you get from the box, just because it's an additional 7.5% damage to every cannon I strip to this, and a cannon burst aerator prototype, again from that same box, activation time adjustment of minus 4.5%, so the cannons fire that little bit faster, which is just extra DPS. Now you'll see that even with Destroyer Engineering at 4, this particular fit does fill out that power grid completely. 52 of 52. There is nothing else I can add to this. That said though, for the mid-slot sub-weapons tend to be fairly short range anyway, like Nosferatus and Neutralizers. You're not really going to use those. But if you do have enough to fit in a Warp Disruptor, you might want to take this for PvP, but it's not the kind of ship I'd recommend for PvP. Anyway, let's now go and talk one step up again for the Thrasher fleet issue. Now, I'll be completely honest, as much as I adore the Thrasher fleet issue for everything from its stats to its damage to just how it performs and its basic outline and silhouette, I have to admit I am not a fan of this forest camo. I just don't get why anyone would paint a spaceship in forest camo. How big are your trees? Anyway, let's have a look at the stats for this one. This is a tech level 5, so it again is a step up from the Thrasher 2. You'll need to be tech level 5 to build this, you'll need to be tech level 5 to fly this. When we look at the stats for it, 4 high slots, 3 mid slots, 3 low slots, and 2 of each of the rigs. That now is an additional mid slot, but for our build, we're not going to get to use those. Again, that same Thrasher roll bonus of small cannon optimal range is included, but small cannon operation now gives us a bonus of 7.5% small cannon tracking speed, as before, up to a total of 37.5, but then has the whopping increase here. Small cannon damage has gone from 4% to 7.5%. That means for me at level 5, rather than 20%, that's 37.5% DPS increase straight off the bat. Destroyer Command then also starts giving you additional bonuses there. 5% to shield, as with all other Thrashers, but an additional scan resolution and sensor strength, which means this ship locks on faster, which means it can actually be remarkably useful for PvP, just because you do get that additional window just to lock someone down before they can warp away. And Yeah, I'm a pirate. I love that. Anyway, so if we have a look at how I fit this one, you can see 104.32 DPS. This is based on a complement of 4 Mark V small strike cannons. Those are all in position up here. I do love these things. Again, we're going for that range build. Down in the low slots, we are still the same again. Mark III small afterburner for moving around, Mark III gyro stabilizer for the additional damage, and Mark III small shield booster to heal anything coming through. Now, unlike the Thrasher 2, I have enough power grid here to also squeeze in a Mark III warp disruptor, which, as I said, for PvP allows me to lock people down, and with the scanners I can lock on faster, lock them down quicker, and then start shooting from a range. 20 kilometers is about when I would open fire with this thing. That can be very scary when this turns up in a belt. Now for rigs, as you can see, I've not had the opportunity to fit 2 yet. I'm still grinding out all the materials I needed. I've got a cannon burst aerator grid in there, not the prototype this time, I'm using the proper ones. Activation time adjustment makes it shoot faster. For the second slot, I will go straight for the collision accelerator, which is additional 7.5% damage. That will up that DPS that little bit further. Well, there we go. That's the Thrasher fleet issue. Now, it's all well and good me telling you that the Thrasher is an excellent line of ships to get into. Great if you like small cannons, brilliant for doing like combat encounters and anomalies and ratting. It's also really good for PvP and all that kind of thing, but let's be fair, a demonstration I think showcases that a lot better. So I've come all the way out here to Nullsec, and I'm going to jump into this particular small anomaly 6 here with my Thrasher fleetish, and I'm going to do so about 20 kilometers away to showcase this in action. Now, I am using the build that we saw before, Mark V strike cannons, about 20 kilometer range on those things. If I open up the thing, you can see here, optimal range and accuracy fall off gives me about a good 20 kilometer to 30 kilometer range to work with. I've also set an autopilot in the top left. That means if things start going wrong, I can just slam that activate autopilot button and get out of there as soon as possible. So as we come in, I can see there is a Gisty Thrasher, a Gisty Vigil E-War, and a Gistum Rupture. So I'm going to massively zoom all the way out. I'm going to find where those are in the overview, and then I'm going to go at a small angle away from those guys with the Afterburner active. So I double tap to align in the distance there. That will send me moving away from these ships. Now that Vigil E-War is a slight concern of mine. I'm worried that that's going to try and lock me down or do some other nasty stuff, so I'm going to start shooting at that. And you can see I can do so from a range here. 22 kilometers, and I'm still hitting that and doing some damage, and those ships are going to start closing on me. I'm hoping I can outrun them and get a little bit of distance. So we want that E-War down first, then I'm going to go for the Thrasher, then we'll worry about the Rupture at the end. Target priority. Kill the things that have the nasty toys, like the Vigil E-War, and then go up through size, basically. Because I can move quite quickly, I'm not overly worried about destroyers, not overly worried about cruisers. We can handle that. Anyway, I can just drift away quite slowly here. I am going to activate the shield booster a little bit, just to get a little bit of my shields back, taking a tiny, tiny bit of damage, not much at all. Right, now that we are firing at the Thrasher, I'm actually going to deactivate both of my turrets, wait for this one to cycle, and you'll see I'm going to get a nice little alpha strike out on this one. So what I'm going to do, there we go, activate the gyro stabilizer, and then activate the 2 turrets as well. That'll give me a nice big punch, hopefully, from those. There we go. Start doing a little bit more damage, and you can see that that Rupture is there. I want to be moving away from the Rupture, but keeping that Thrasher in range as well. So I'm going to now move sideways along. I am taking quite a bit of damage here, but it's nothing crazy. I'm still in shields. I don't need to start panicking or worrying. Still in shields. Now I'm going to turn the shield booster off as we are getting down to low capacitor. Once your capacitor hits about 27%, it becomes a lot slower to recharge. So you do want to stop it from like going down below 30% ideally. Also, you can see here by manually piloting, I'm trying to keep myself moving across the enemy ships. That makes me a much harder target to hit, especially for that Rupture. That is an important point. If that Rupture hits me, it is going to do some rather hefty damage. So I keep my distance here and just try and go across. Like the Gisty Thrasher, you can see I'm actually moving completely transverse to it now with the Rupture in the distance. Never orbit in high combat like this. If I'm orbiting that Thrasher, I'm going to be going in and out of range of that Gistum Rupture, and I'm also not going to be doing it at at an actual distance. You know, I'm not going to be... there are going to be times, if I'm orbiting the Thrasher, there are going to be times where I'm moving towards or away from the Rupture, not across it, which means I'm much more likely to get hit. I need to turn my capacitor off now. Having just said, oh no, we don't ever orbit. I mean in a fleet. Once it's a one-on-one engagement, orbiting works absolutely fine, because that now allows me to keep my distance perfectly from this guy, and I'm always now moving in a transverse manner. I'm always going across his field of fire, not towards him, not away. It's about relative velocity. I will do a proper go into the maths video on how cannons work at some point. Let's get that gyro stabilizer going. There we go, just to punch this guy, because he does have a lot of tank. Being a Rupture, it is a very tanky cruiser, takes a bit of while for me to punch through. In fact, let's go into the Observe and have a look at these, because these are cool-looking ships that really do look like a pirate ship in space. To me, that is what a space pirate galleon would look like, and if I ever get into cruisers, be assured that's probably one of the ones I'm going to go for. You know I love my Minmatar, and that's just a great little one. Anyway, let's come out of this, reset the camera back here. I'm not going to sit here and go through every wave of this small anomaly, simply because that's going to make a very, very dull video, but I am going to wait until we've completed the Rupture, just to showcase that that 100% is possible. I can then... I'm going to get some guys to come in and loot this behind me. Let's have a look. Ugh, there's only a cruiser wreck, so I can actually grab that now quickly. 18 kilometers from Tal Wars. Tal Wars aren't a huge thing to worry about. Let's get that cruiser wreck loot, and then we'll get out of here and leave this to the rest of the cartel to worry about, because then they can come in here. And we're getting a lot of fleet operations going, doing ratting and that together. Anyway, there we are. Mark V medium strike cannons. Those will be nice to have when it comes to me fitting a cruiser, like I've just mentioned. There we are, just taking a nice little hit from something there, not sure what. You see I activate the autopilot, that then takes me out of the combat. I can then turn that off immediately and it'll take me straight off to a gate. Great little trick there for PvE. As long as you are not disrupted, as long as you don't have like a warp disruptor on you or something, you can just use your autopilot to jump out of combat. I can then, if I was on no capacitor and no shield left, I can jump out like this, wait for that to recharge, jump back in, and continue where we left off, because it is still right there, Angel Small Anomaly 6, right at the top. Now I am going to activate my shield booster just to repair that. Anyway, I'm going to jump back in a moment and finish that off, but I just wanted to showcase to you guys what kind of stuff you can do with a Thrasher, and have a look at some basic maneuvering in space as well. I hope you enjoyed this, folks. Do let me know in the comment section down below. I know a lot of you guys have been flying Thrashers and wanted to know my thoughts on the 3 Guild Belt Shark. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.